3, 2, 1, go.
And welcome into PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. And with me, just off the fresh off the Orioles cruise, and he looks like he's got a little sun. Ross Grimsley, how are you, Ross?
Doing great, man. Doing great, Stan.
All right,
Good time. Had a lot of fun. There was we had 40 people on the cruise. We've done this 17 years now, and it started out. Elrod Hendricks was in charge, and Lee May was on it for a while. Had a little bit of everybody, so we got to share some stories, tell some things, and look forward to what's coming up for the Orioles this year.
All right. Well, we're going to talk a little bit in about 45 seconds with the man who has a little something to say about how the Orioles are going to do this year and the years ahead. He's Director of Player Development, Matt Blood. But first, let me tell you that you can win big with PressBox and our mobile sports betting partners. That's right. Get thousands of dollars in incentives and promo offers from Barstool, Caesars, FanDuel, and more at PressBoxOnline.com/offers. That's PressBoxOnline.com/offers. We're also sponsored by Maryland Vascular Specialists. Their team of surgeons is Maryland's leaders in ethical arterial procedures. Go to mvsdoctors.com to learn more about their treatments. And of course, our sponsor on these Zooms is the Costas Inn as well, out there at 4100 North Point Boulevard. As promised, we bring you the Director of Player Development for the Baltimore Orioles. And Matt, I'll start out the question. The Orioles are the #1 rated farm system in all of baseball now. 8 players in the top 100. Does that mean that you are the highest paid Director of Player Development in Major League Baseball?
Oh, I don't think it works like that exactly. But,
Shouldn't it work that way though, Matt?
Hey, I'm not going to argue with you if you want to put that out there, but
all right.
No, it's cool. It's neat to see the players getting recognized. It's definitely an organizational type of accomplishment. I mean, if you want to call it an accomplishment, because these players still have to make it to the major leagues and be productive contributors. But it is nice to see we have 8 or 9 players that are being recognized in that top 100 realm, and we feel like we have more that are ready to kind of jump in there too once some graduate. So it's a nice thing to be seeing right now from a player development perspective.
Let me just ask you a question before I turn you over to Ross for a couple. Seriously, and all kidding aside now, does player development start, you got to get the right players, or are there things beyond the draft and signing, amateur players that you can do to really turn them into good players? Or does it simply, you start out with the right ingredients, you can't go wrong?
No, I'm a big believer that, all players, they have a sort of a wide range of possibilities. If you wanted to say outcomes that could occur for that player. And it's our job to help as many players as possible reach the higher end outcome of their potential. And I believe that when player development is not done well, I think it costs some players a real chance to be productive major leaguers. And when it is done well, it helps some players who maybe otherwise wouldn't have gotten that chance. So there's a huge competitive advantage in player development and doing it well. And I'd like to think that we're on the good end of that right now.
Ross?
Yeah, Matt, the new regime that came in, they've spent a lot of time drafting international players and signing them. And just recently, 27 international signings, a 16-year-old shortstop. Can you talk a little bit about some of the signings of the international players this year and in the past, some of the players and how they progressed?
Great question. I'm actually heading to the Dominican this week. So I'll be seeing those 27 players on Wednesday and for the rest of this week. So I'm very excited to see them for the first time in person. So I can't tell you a whole lot about this group. I know that one of them is pretty highly touted, and I'm excited to meet him. But I can tell you in the Dominican, when you sign kids at age 16, anything can happen. And you
Right.
could sign a kid for 10,000 who ends up being the best player of the bunch. And that's the way that our coaches really attack it. You know, we don't care who was signed for what. We're going to help each player as best we can, and hopefully some will rise. And we're seeing that from some players that were signed. You asked about in the past, and you know, Samuel Basayo, he was probably one of the more famous ones. Big, athletic catcher who sort of physically kind of looks like Salvador Perez. Smart kid, very young, very athletic, and he's got a chance to start in Delmarva this year at a very young age. So we're excited about him. And he got some money. You know, he got signed for some money. But on the flip side, a player like Frederick Ben Cosme, who signed for very, very little, he made it all the way to high A last year after being in the Dominican Summer League the year before. And he's a high contact bat, athletic kid, can play all over the infield. He's still super young. So that's a couple names there for you that are excelling so far in our system.
How is that? Is there any pitchers or very many pitchers that were signed or drafted internationally?
Yeah, so they're still very young, and it's hard to know exactly who's going to be what. You know, but you know, last year in Delmarva we had a couple sort of shine through, and like Davey Cruz, for example, a young pitcher there in Delmarva. He pitched well. Juan de los Santos, he's another one that had a nice showing there in Delmarva. But they're all still very young, and it's hard to really know which one is going to pop. But those would be a couple names for you.
Right.
Matt, the development of players, if you look at the top 8 players, the top, the 8 that are in the top 100, 6 are position players, 2 are players that were drafted by the Orioles and signed by the Orioles. Is this regime, Mike Elias, down through you, are you more of the opinion that pitching can be developed in other ways rather than simply through the draft, and the injury possibility with pitchers is so great that it's best to we'll get our arms around getting our arms some other way?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. I think that it could be perceived that way. What I know about Mike and Sig in terms of the draft and just acquiring players in general is they have a ton of experience with it, and our process is very thorough and in my opinion, and obviously I'm probably a little biased, but the best out there in terms of acquiring players in a systematic, very intelligent way. And their goal is to get the best player with every pick. That the player that's going to provide the most major league value in the future in that round at that pick.
in the draft.
And so when the time comes to make a selection, whatever round it is, they make the pick based on which player is most likely going to provide the most value. They're not necessarily saying, well, we got to go position player pitcher, or whatever. They just want to get the player that might provide us the most major league value. And so far that has produced a lot of position players near the top part of the draft. But to your other point, yes, we feel pretty confident that pitching can be found and developed all throughout the draft. I think if you look back historically, really good pitchers come from all over the draft, not just the first round. And we're confident now in our pitching development process, the people we have, the coaches we have, the resources we have, and we're seeing some of it come to fruition now at the upper levels. So just because they weren't drafted in the first couple rounds doesn't mean they don't have a chance to be very productive major leaguers.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that Mike doesn't take pitching seriously, because in 3 trades he got 4 pitchers for Bundy, 4 for Jorge Lopez, and 2 for Trey Mancini. That's 10 pitchers. You talk about a couple of those pitchers. The most intriguing to me is Cody Povich and the couple pitchers that we got in the deal with for Trey Mancini. I know we're not going to see Seth Johnson pitch this year, but Chase What's his
McDermott.
name? Chase McDermott. Yeah, could you talk about those two pitchers?
Yeah, Cade Povich is a left-handed pitcher. He's from the Big Ten, Nebraska, and he's just a highly competitive pitchability lefty who also has stuff. Well, the reason I say pitchability is he's got a bunch of pitches. It's not like he's a soft tosser by any means.
Right.
He can come at you with multiple weapons, including a fastball in the low to mid 90s. He's left-handed and he throws strikes. So Ross, I think you can appreciate all those things. Being a left-handed pitcher yourself, and so he's got a real chance to be a rotation arm. I can't predict right now whether it'll be a top of the rotation or back at the end of the rotation. Haven't seen quite enough of him, but I think he's got a chance to be in the rotation, which is pretty exciting to be able to acquire via trade a guy who's going to be in Double-A this year and could even work his way higher.
Yeah.
And then McDermott, big, strong righty with power stuff. And I think the question was sort of, is he a starter or reliever? But what we're seeing is he's got a real chance to be a starter. And he's similar, just to kind of a bulldog competitor mentality and throws hard with good secondary stuff. So he's another guy that'll be in Double-A this year. I'm thrilled with the acquisition of both of those guys.
Yeah.
I think it was a fantastic get for our organization and really helps with the depth in terms of the arms that we have.
Before Ross picks up, have you ever seen Johnson pitch? Are you familiar with him?
I've seen him on video. I know he went to Campbell and saw him in the draft. It was coincidentally, I was in Arlington for the series whenever he got traded to us, and he was there too because he was about to have the surgery.
Right.
And so we actually sat down together for 3 or 4 innings during the game against the Rangers, and he was a real delight to sit with and talk to. A bright kid, sort of a later developing player. He was an infielder, and I actually saw him in high school when he was down in Charlotte too. So he's exciting to me. We just got to get him healthy. We got to get him back. But in terms of being able to embrace the resources we have, he's already thinking about how he can get his stuff better and work a little bit with his delivery. I'm excited about him once we get him back in games, and maybe in 2024 he could be a guy who makes an impact.
Ross, go ahead.
Yeah, Matt, speaking of pitching, and I just, we've watched pitching at the Oriole level, many years. And last year was something, they took a step in the right direction. I think they set the 7th fewest walks in baseball, 7th fewest pitches, 14th highest strike percentage, 13th highest first pitch strikes, 12th in walk and hits per whip. The bullpen was fantastic. They had the 78% save opportunities. They had the fewest blown saves. Pitching was fantastic. Throwing strikes. My question, is there an Oriole? Does Chris Holt have a philosophy for pitching? Because last year you love to see it. Obviously, they moved the fence back. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but the pitchers were aggressive. They threw strikes. They got ahead of hitters. Everything you love to see. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, definitely. Throwing strikes is an organizational philosophy. I mean, if you don't throw strikes, then you're going to have a hard time competing at the major league level. And I think Holte and Darren Holmes did a fantastic job this past season. It was Holte's second season with the team, and I think that went a long ways in just regards to him sort of being more comfortable and getting his processes up and running there with the team, and also just starting to roll out more of our resources and our information to the players. I also think the catcher, Adley Rutschman, helped a little bit, with some of this stuff. But it was really cool to see some of these names that were either Rule 5 picks or waiver claims, or sort of names that we just signed that people didn't really care that much for, and all of a sudden they all became difference maker type pitchers. And that's player development, and that's also players, just doing what it takes to perform. But it's really exciting, and hopefully we can keep that trend going.
Yeah. The other thing, now that baseball is really leaning toward the bullpen, and kind of starting pitchers are not so much a thing of the past, but they don't get as many innings. Do you think starting pitching will be as important as it was several years ago? And does the minor league system, do they work at developing starting pitching?
Starting pitching is still the most valuable asset in regards to pitching. I mean, it's the toughest thing to do. I think in the way the game is now with teams loading up in platoons and the way that they're structuring things, it seems to create more push towards relievers coming in the games earlier. But a starting pitcher that can go deep into games is massively valuable. It's so important. I mean, we saw last year, Jordan Lyles, many times really just kind of save the team, save the bullpen by going deeper into games. And I don't think, unless they change the rules, I don't think that that's going to stop being valuable.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue to try to develop starting pitching as much as we can, because that's ultimately where the most value is. And we also feel like if we need to move a guy to the bullpen later in his career, or even when he makes it to major leagues, that's easier to do than to transfer him from the bullpen to the starting rotation, major league level.
Right.
So starting pitching is our focus for sure.
Yeah.
And then also just clearly trying to develop really quality major league weapons.
Right. Exactly. One of the things and it looks like teams need about 20 pitchers, because the way they use the bullpen guys are hurt. That you see that, especially with the Orioles, a lot of guys that come up, and like you said, a lot of guys that didn't, that weren't really, I hate to say wanted by, but obviously they weren't by the teams they were let go of. What a lot of the guys are not, they 4A players, pitchers, and they can come up and spell a guy for a week or 2 weeks. Is that what you look for at the AAA level, guys that you can can pitch in the big leagues on a short period of time for whatever reason? So you get how many pitchers? I guess what I'm asking, how many pitchers do you think you need for the whole season to come up and down?
I don't know the exact answer. I mean, I think Mike would probably answer it better than myself. I would just say you want as many good pitchers as you could possibly have, even if they're in AAA. I don't think we're looking for a guy to put in AAA who's not quite good enough to be a major leaguer. I think we want, even if we have 5 starting pitchers, I would love to have 5 more major league starting pitchers in AAA, just saying, I can't get up there because those other guys are pitching so well, But
that's the way it used to be.
and that's the way I think good teams are. They've got a lot of depth.
Right.
They have 8, 9 starting pitchers, and 5 of them in the major leagues, and the other 4 are just sort of waiting their turn for whenever something happens, And so I think that we just want to be as good as we can possibly be, and that's to have as many good players we can possibly have under the rules, and they'll get their chances whenever it's the right time.
Right.
I wanted to follow up and talk to you about 3 pitchers I'm thinking you've probably more than rubbed elbows with over the last 3 seasons. And that's Grayson Rodriguez, who figures to probably make the rotation out of spring training. Possible they could decide at the last minute, hey, he needs 5, 6 starts down at AAA. The other, Dean Kramer and Kyle Bradish. Could you talk about how you see those 3 pitchers and give us a profile of them?
I love all 3 of those guys. You asked about Grayson first. I mean, he's the youngest and the most hyped in terms of prospect status, and he looks the part. He's got the attitude, the makeup, the work ethic, and he's got the stuff to be frontline starting pitcher type. And it's just a matter of him going out and doing it at this point. So, I'm rooting really hard for him, as you can imagine. And I wouldn't bet against that guy, knowing what he does to prepare every day. So I really can't say enough positive things that haven't already been said.
And how about the other two who have, both of them have worked through some incredible adversity in their time with the Orioles? I mean, Dean Kramer looked like this guy's just not going to make it. And then all of a sudden the light went on and he was something else. And last year, Kyle Bradish was struggling quite a bit, went to the minors and came back, and he was a different fit.
Right. Yeah. So first, of the credit goes for Dean, it goes to Dean. He struggled mightily the year before. And
See, I wanted to give you all the credit for development.
Well, I'll say that the pitching setup that we now have between AAA and the major leagues is really good. Justin Ramsey and Chris Holt, they've been working together a long time, and the communication it's fluid, and all the things that they're doing at the major league level we're doing in AAA, and the players go up and down. They're not getting a different message or anything like that. They know what they got to work on, and it's happening. And I will say that is productive, and that's why players are able to continue to get better and not get worse whenever they go down. But Dean embraced the information that was being provided him, and he worked hard to make some adjustments where he needed to make some adjustments. And you saw what happened last year, and hopefully that is just the beginning for him. Now, Bradish, we got him in the trade, and I'll be honest, and you can probably go back and see where I've been quoted on this. I've been extremely high on him from basically the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's because it was at the alternate site. Our hitters were facing him, and all of them would just come back and say, "Oh my goodness, like this guy has got stuff that I just have not seen before, and it's just very difficult to hit." And when he's locating, he's tough. I mean, you saw it at multiple starts this year against really good teams. He went deep into games and was dominant. And when you're first up into the major leagues that first year, you're going to have some bumps in the road. Most people are. Most people are. It's not that easy. And so that's what happened to him. He had some games where he executed well. He had some games where he didn't. And that's baseball. And so he's got to continue to refine his ability to execute on a more consistent basis. But he has the stuff. He definitely has the makeup. You kind of saw that against Aaron Judge, where he's not afraid to go, attack him. Right. And he's just got to do it on a consistent basis. And I believe he can. So he's a guy that I've always been bullish on, and that's not going to change.
I've got one more, and then I'll give Ross one, and we'll let you get out of here. Matt, when you answered the question about Chase McDermott, you said, there's a lot of discussion about whether he's a starter or reliever. All I do is I see the paper, I look at the numbers, see innings pitched, strikeouts, and so on and so forth. And I sit there and go, that looks like a relief pitcher to me. What kinds of discussions do you have internally about a DL Hall, a Chase McDermott, to make that decision? And does it end up being kind of black and white, like he's going to be one or the other, or you try and keep an open mind to developing?
It's rarely black and white. Sometimes the major league team will dictate whether a player goes to the major leagues as a relief pitcher or as a starter. Sometimes that is the case based on what's up there and where they are in regards to their season, or if they're competing or not. Other times it's up to the player and whether they have good enough command to survive multiple innings at the major league level. Because if you don't, you're either going to get hit hard, or you're going to walk too many batters, or you're going to go too deep in counts to get through 3 or 4 innings. And then the other is, do you have enough weapons? Do you have 3-4 pitches to be able to keep hitters off balance for that deep into a game in order to be a starter? And so those are the conversations that you have, whether, this pitcher needs to develop another weapon in order to throw against left-handed batters or to be able to get through the lineup one more time, or this pitcher he's got all the weapons. He just isn't efficient enough with them in regards to strike throwing or command, and we got to improve that if he's going to be a starter.
Okay. Ross?
Yeah, but
Yep.
man, what are your, the new rules are going to come into play this coming year. They got the automated ball and strike system is going to, I think, be at AAA if I'm not mistaken. What are your thoughts on that and some of the other rule changes?
Yeah, you know what? I honestly don't think too much about them. They're somewhat subtle outside of the shift rule now, and it's sort of getting back closer to traditional baseball, which is just fine with me. I think that that's going to lend itself to having good athletic infielders, which we have, and left-handed hitters are going to benefit from that, which we have a lot of those. So I'm fine, with those things. It's nice to see some stealing being, an incentivized essentially with the bigger bases and slightly closer together, and so that'll bring some excitement to the game. And I've seen the automatic ball strike review system in person. I saw it in the Arizona Fall League, and it's actually kind of exciting. Whenever it's sort of like if you ever watch tennis, whenever they challenge a serve that's just close to the line or whatever, they kind of show the Hawkeye view and the ball going through the air, and then where does it land? And if they do it right, which I'm sure they will, it'll create some anticipation on the screen as that ball's going towards home plate. Everybody be wondering, strike, nope, ball. And
Right.
so I think there's some elements of it that are going to help the game for sure. I know that's what they're trying to do, and
Right.
it also, they're trying to speed it up a little bit, which in the minor leagues it has with the game clock, and the minor league games drastically decreased in time, which was enjoyable. So
The pitchers have to like that though. I just never understood why, they didn't work quick, because it keeps your defense on their toes. It keeps the hitter defensive. And I just never understood why. Has there been any talk that the pitchers that you've heard that like or dislike, or what is their thoughts?
I think people like it. Just got to get used to it, and that's why they rolled it out in the minor leagues, so that many of the future major leaguers will already have just been doing this, and it's no big deal. But yeah, I mean, every now and then you got to figure out a creative way to step off, or
Right.
take a breath. Otherwise it could speed up on you some. But I think ultimately it's not going to be too big of a deal.
Matt, before we let you go, I promise I won't one more you to death. But the player I was most excited about last spring, I went to see Rutschman when he was coming back, and I got to see Kobe Mayo. And I was excited just how he swung the bat, the way when I used to see Troy Gloss or some really terrific hitter 20 years ago. And then later in the game, he was 0 for 2, and I leaned over to Luke Jackson, my editor at Press Box. I said, this is his third at bat against the same pitcher. And I said, he should be able to pick one. And I got the word pick in there, like pick one out. And all of a sudden I heard a noise that I don't often hear. And he
It's
had
loud.
launched a mammoth home run. He hit one again the next night. How excited are you? And was he injured this past year a little bit?
I'm very excited about him. And you said Troy Gloss. I think that's an interesting comparison. He's that kind of size and just length, throughout his body. Sort of, it's so young still. He's 19 years old essentially. This past season, and he's like a baby giraffe out there in terms of his body, and he's going to be a big man.
Yeah.
He's already kind of a big frame, but he is not even close to being as big as he's going to be physically, and that's really exciting because he can absolutely murder the baseball. And he's such a smart kid. That's something I don't think many people know. He's incredibly smart and has a lot
I love him. He's a guy that has got a good chance to be in the top 100 like next year this time.
He is, and if you look at some other top hundreds, he is in the top 100. So
okay,
it depends on which one you look at. We have 9 or 10 players that you can find in the top 100 somewhere, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, he's a projection player, and he's still young, and so that's why he's not a slam dunk quite yet. But he's in Double A, and he hits the ball so hard, and he's just got a ton of aptitude and great work ethic. So I'm taking the over on Mayo,
All right.
and yeah, he's just young. It's his first full season. You know, he's fit, developing physically. So yeah, there's going to be bumps and bruises and soreness along the way for a kid like that. So nothing major, but he had a pretty good year in my opinion.
All right. Matt Blood, Director of Player Development, Baltimore Orioles. I'll be down in Sarasota in March, and one of the days where the team travels, I might come out to Twin Lake. Are you there a lot?
You should come see us. We have a lot of good stuff going on over
Yeah,
there.
I want to come out there. Maybe
You want to
Ross
hear
will
some more of
join me.
those loud sounds you heard off of Mayo's bat? You should come
Yeah,
on over.
because Ross lives in Bradenton now, so maybe he
Yeah.
and I'll both come out one
Yeah,
day.
really. I'm right down the street from the Pirates complex and not far from Sarasota. Matt, I do have to say one thing. I have several friends that are still scouting. I have people that are in different execs in front offices, and everybody that went either into Aberdeen or saw Aberdeen play had so many compliments talking about the players' hustle, their fundamentals, base running, hitting with 2 outs, just doing every fundamental. They had so many. It was crazy. Some of them I just asked, out of nowhere, and they just all of them said the same thing. So whatever they're doing, and who's ever doing it and helping out are doing a great job, because there's a lot of compliments coming.
It's really great to hear. That always makes you happy to hear something like that. The coaching staff there did a fantastic job this year. They had a ton of different players. The thing is that wasn't just one group of players that the people saw.
Right,
It
right.
was really 3 different teams that were in Aberdeen throughout the year. If you count up the players that were there, they started and left, and then other players came up, and then more players left, and more players came up. And the coaching staff there did a great job. And Roberto Mercado, he won our, essentially our Coach of the Year award for the player development system, the Cal Ripken Senior Award, and he did a fantastic job. It was his first year in the organization, and I can't speak highly enough of the way that group operated this past season.
Yeah,
Matt,
well,
thank
it
you very
definitely
much.
shows a lot of compliments.
That's awesome. That's great.
Thanks for being so generous with your time. Okay. Matt
Absolutely.
Blood,
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Matt.
Player Development Director for the Baltimore Orioles. I want to remind you that we are brought to you by the Costas Inn, and the Costas Inn out there on 4100 North Point Boulevard. They have really upped their curbside pickup game. And all you have to do, if you have any fear about going indoors to a restaurant, is order online at costasin.com. You can pay for it online. And when you stop by, you'll just notify them you're there, and they'll come out and deliver the food to your car. And everything's packed immaculately. Nick and Pete will treat you right at the Costas Inn. Ross, appreciate your coming on. Next week, we'll have an exciting guest one way or the other. We're aiming
Got
for
it, buddy,
somebody
yeah.
fairly important. Real quick, who do you think we'll see in the Super Bowl? We got two.
Well,
we
my
got two-
team is gone, so it doesn't matter for me. I like the 49ers. I just like the way they play, but should be exciting.
I think that game is a Super Bowl in itself, the Philly San Francisco game.
Right, exactly.
And I'll tell you what, I don't know if you saw Patrick Mahomes' injury. They say it's an ankle, a high ankle sprain.
Right.
He is so fortunate on that play. I thought he had a wrench knee that was going to have like a torn MCL or something. If he's not at 100%, they may have a very hard time besting Joe Burrow next Sunday.
Hey, that's the. You can't even call them a dark horse. They're playing very well. You thought with their offensive line there was going to be some problems, but those guys, the backups come in and played fantastic. So the Bengals are a team to people should be worried about.
All right, Ross, great to see you again. Give my
Great,
love
buddy.
to Bird, and I'll talk to you soon.
Will do, man.
All right, Gary Stein will not be with me this Thursday. This Thursday at 4 o'clock live, I'll be interviewing the director of Maryland Lottery and Sports Gaming, and that is John Martin at 4 o'clock this week. And more with the guests coming up on our shows in the future. All right, Ross, thanks a lot. And thanks to Matt Blood. Good night,
Got
everybody.
it, buddy.